is really very subjective versus someone like a more removed, even if that's fictional, but kind of removing the I from a narrative more. Like if you ever grapple with that or just feel like, oh, like I just want to like write every single thing that's in front of me and not make anything of it, just describe and nothing else.
Yes. Do I wrestle with it? Yes. Yeah. And I think that I love that image of the Pac-Man game. I've never been any good at any arcade game, so that idea that I somehow created an arcade game that I could be good at by writing essays is really appealing to me. But certainly that motion of setting out the world and then digesting the world, or a sort of a version of like an Ouroboros of like the snake of narrative swallowing its own tail on the page. I think it's less that I feel it as an overt choice, that I have to tell a story or lay something out and then consume it or metabolize it, and more that I just don't know any other way of being on the page, I think. And I guess part of what I try to think about when I ask myself the question, which is a different question in relation to each piece, of like how much of me should be in this piece and what's the role of me in this piece, is how can my presence in this piece feel like it's facilitating a reader's engagement with this subject rather than blocking a reader's engagement? Because there's a version of the I, the presence of the narrator in a piece, that can feel like a body standing between the reader and the subject, or the reader and the landscape. And I think sometimes my frustration with A.G. is that it can feel like A.G.'s body, literally, when he's describing spending the night on one of these families' porches, or more figuratively when he's talking about his endless guilt. You can feel his body or his subjectivity or his guilt as this kind of shadow where you just want it to get out of the way so you can see the family, or so you can see their daily life, or so you can see the things that they feel about their home rather than just seeing the things A.G. feels about their home. But I think there's another version of a narrator's presence on the page where you feel that narrator is a kind of guide who's opening up the landscape for you, or asking the questions of a subject that maybe were the questions you would have wanted to ask them, or bringing their own experience into the frame in a way that illuminates something about the subject that kind of surprises you and catches you off guard. And that's the hope, right? Is that the narrative I, when I do come onto the page, is sort of opening up these little doors in the wall and then taking you through them, rather than feeling like this sort of looming figure that you just, want to try to see around the side of her body in some way.
But you also really write a lot about bodies. And there are many instances, not to contradict what you said, but there are many instances in this book and many different essays where there's a sort of